Did you know that millions of men ignore the first warning signs of a sick prostate for months, sometimes even years? Without realizing that their body is already asking for help, many believe that symptoms are just a normal part of aging. Even more shocking, many men believe that frequent urination or a weaker urine stream is normal, but that very thought can be dangerous. A serious change often starts without severe pain. It begins with small symptoms that many men ignore every day. And that is exactly what I want to talk about today. There are specific warning signals your body sends. Some seem harmless, others initially just annoying. But taken together, they can be a clear sign that your prostate is beginning to change. Many men could have spared themselves a lot of suffering if they had taken these signals seriously earlier. So be sure to stay until the end. I will show you later what you can specifically do to reduce your risk. Simple habits can protect your prostate. Because in this case, knowledge can literally save lives. So let's get started. Which 7 warning signs indicate that something is wrong with your prostate? Let's start with one of the most common warning signs. You suddenly have to urinate much more often. Tell me honestly, have you lately felt the need to go to the bathroom more often? Maybe you think, oh, I just drank more, or this is probably normal at my age. But this is exactly where many men miss the first signal. Frequent urge can be a sign of an enlarged prostate. Medically, we often speak of benign prostatic hyperplasia, or BPH. The prostate begins to grow. The prostate sits right below the bladder. As it grows, it puts more pressure on this sensitive area. This has consequences. The bladder suddenly can't empty completely anymore. You go to the toilet, and just a short time later, you feel the urgent need to go again, as if the bladder never really became empty. Many patients call it, I was just at the toilet, and why again? The answer is residual urine. This means that after urinating, part of the urine remains in the bladder. This triggers the urge sooner. The bladder starts working over time. It works harder and sends signals more frequently. Suddenly, daily life revolves around the next toilet. In restaurants, while driving, or at the cinema. During long meetings or while traveling. This limits your life massively. Don't ignore it. And many men don't talk about it because they think it's embarrassing. But this is an important signal. Frequent urination is not just annoying. It can be a serious warning sign from your prostate, especially if your habits have suddenly changed. If you notice, it used to be different. But unfortunately, it often doesn't stop there. The next symptom affects men even more at night. 6. Warning sign. You constantly get up at night to urinate. Now it gets really uncomfortable. If frequent urination during the day is stressful, then nighttime urge can be truly exhausting. You fall asleep. 2 hours later, you suddenly wake up. Not because of noise, but because of pressure. You go to the toilet, lie down again. And as soon as you fall asleep, it all starts over. 1, 2, 3 times. We call this symptom nocturia, and it is one of the most common complaints with an enlarged prostate. Many underestimate the consequences. Poor sleep means more than just being tired. It affects concentration. It can change your mood and even have effects on cardiovascular health and metabolism. The relationship can also suffer. If someone keeps getting up, the partner often wakes up too. A problem that only affects the bladder suddenly begins to negatively influence your entire life. Why does it happen at night? When we lie down, the fluid distribution in the body changes massively. The bladder can react more sensitively to residual urine. The pressure leads to constant waking up. So my question to you, how often do you get up at night? Once, twice, 3 times or more? If this has changed, please do not ignore it. Now we come to a symptom that scares many men. 5. Warning sign, your urine stream becomes weaker. Something suddenly doesn't work like it used to. Have you noticed that your stream has become weaker? Maybe slower than it used to be? Does it suddenly take longer before anything comes at all? Many men hardly notice this difference at first. Imagine a garden hose. As long as nothing presses on it, the water flows through it strongly. But as soon as pressure is applied, the stream becomes weaker. That's exactly what happens with BPH. What used to be effortless becomes slow and frustrating. Some men even have to strain. And this is not a normal sign of aging. This is a warning signal. Please listen to your body. Often, this is the start of a development that can worsen if left untreated. Take it seriously. And this is where it gets even more uncomfortable for many men, because what initially seems like a weaker urine stream often develops further. Suddenly, something no longer works as reliably as it used to. And many men then say, maybe that's just age. But no, your body may be trying to tell you something right now. So let's move on to the next warning signal. Fourth warning sign, it continues to drip after urinating. Has this ever happened to you? You think you're done. You close your pants. Maybe you've even left the bathroom. And suddenly you notice there are still a few drops coming. An uncomfortable feeling, sometimes even embarrassing, especially in public, or if stains appear on clothing. Many men never talk about it, but believe me, you are not alone with this. This symptom is called post-void dribbling. Why does this happen? When the prostate grows, it can obstruct the normal flow of urine. This sometimes leaves residual urine in the urethra after urinating, and that very urine then escapes seconds later. Many men think, oh, it's nothing serious. But that's exactly where the problem lies, because this small symptom is often ignored, even though in combination with other complaints, it can be a clear warning signal. So, if you notice more frequently that urine still escapes after going to the toilet, you should become attentive, especially when other changes occur at the same time. For example, frequent urge to urinate, nighttime urination, or a weaker stream. Because these symptoms often don't appear individually, they come together. And that's exactly what makes them medically relevant. And the next warning signal is one of the most frustrating of all. Many men are actually startled when it happens for the first time. Third warning sign. The urine stream suddenly stops in the middle of urinating. Imagine the following situation. You're at the toilet, everything starts normally, and suddenly, the urine stream just stops without warning, as if someone suddenly flipped a switch. A few seconds later, it runs again, then it stops again, and you ask yourself, what is going on now? If this sounds familiar to you, you should become attentive, because this can also be a clear warning signal of an enlarged prostate. When the prostate grows, it exerts pressure on the urethra. This can partially block the flow of urine. The result? An interrupted urinary stream. Sometimes everything runs normally, then suddenly it stops again. Many men describe it like a faucet being constantly turned on and off. Not only uncomfortable, but also frustrating. And eventually, every visit to the toilet becomes an uncertainty. Will it work this time or not again? Because you lose the sense of control. Some men even start to avoid public toilets. Others worry about trips or long car rides. And yes, that too affects quality of life. But here's the crucial point. If the urine stream suddenly changes, then don't ignore it, because it often gets worse over time. What starts as an occasional interruption can later lead to more severe problems. In the worst case, the bladder can eventually no longer be emptied properly. And then a nuisance symptom suddenly becomes a medical emergency. Therefore, better to act early than to wait too long, because the next two warning signs are experienced by many men daily, without realizing how serious they can be. Second warning sign. It suddenly takes time for the flow of urine to even begin. Let me ask you a simple question. Do you know this feeling? You urgently need to go to the toilet, maybe even very urgently. You are already standing there. But nothing happens. You wait and wait. And only after a few seconds does the flow begin. Many men experience exactly this, but hardly talk about it. We call this symptom difficulty starting urination, or medically, a flow delay. And yes, this too can be an indication of an enlarged prostate. Because when the prostate presses on the urethra, sometimes the normal muscular strength of the bladder is no longer enough to get the flow going immediately. The result? It takes longer, sometimes significantly longer, and that doesn't just cause frustration, but often also insecurity, especially in public toilets. Many men then think at first, maybe it's just stress, or that happens to everyone sometimes. Yes, unoccasionally that can be normal. But if it happens regularly, when you are alone at home, and it still happens again and again, then you should become attentive, because your body may be sending a signal right now. And I want you to understand one thing. Many men wait much too long. They suppress symptoms. They hope it will go away on its own, or put off seeing a doctor out of shame, out of fear, or because they believe it won't be that bad. But exactly this way of thinking can cause problems later. Because the earlier changes are detected, the better the treatment options are. And now we come to the warning sign that men often find particularly burdensome. A symptom that almost no one likes to talk about. But that's exactly why we have to talk about it. First warning sign, you suddenly lose urine. Has this ever happened to you? You suddenly notice you can't make it to the toilet in time, or small amounts of urine escape without you being able to control it. Maybe just a few drops, maybe more. And maybe you hoped it was just a one-time moment, but if something like this happens more often, you should take it seriously. Because an unwanted discharge of urine can be a sign that the pressure on the bladder is increasing. And that is exactly what we often see with an enlarged prostate. When the bladder is permanently stressed, it can eventually no longer properly control when urine is held or released. For many men, this is emotionally burdensome. It is uncomfortable, embarrassing, and often you start to avoid situations. One worries about longer paths, about visits, about meetings, or even about social contacts. But I tell you quite frankly, silence does not help here. Neither does ignoring. Because these symptoms are not a sign of weakness, they are warning signals of your body. And right now, we need to talk about an important question. Does each of these symptoms automatically mean prostate cancer? The answer to that might surprise you. And this is exactly where we need to talk about something that unsettles many men. Because as soon as problems with urination begin, the same fear often immediately arises: do I perhaps have prostate cancer? If you've ever asked yourself this question, make sure to stay tuned now, because the answer is important, and it could help you avoid unnecessary fear or act at exactly the right moment. Does that automatically mean prostate cancer? The short answer is no. The 7 warning signs we just discussed: frequent urge to urinate, nighttime urination, weak urine stream, dribbling after urination, interruption of the urine stream, difficulty starting urination, and urinary leakage are, in most cases, typical symptoms of an enlarged prostate, medically known as benign prostatic hyperplasia, or BPH for short. And here's a very important point. Benign means non-cancerous. That means an enlarged prostate is not automatically cancer. But, and this but is crucial, this does not mean that you should ignore symptoms, because this is exactly where many men make a dangerous mistake. They think it probably isn't anything serious, or as long as it doesn't hurt, everything is fine. But that's exactly what can be risky, because prostate cancer often develops silently, and that's what makes it so dangerous. In its early stages, prostate cancer often causes no symptoms at all: no pain, no warning signs, no clear feeling that something is wrong. And that's precisely why many men only discover the disease late. When symptoms do appear, the disease may already be advanced. That's why I keep saying this: don't wait for symptoms when it comes to prostate cancer. Early detection saves lives. And I want to address this openly because many men avoid this topic, out of embarrassment, uncertainty, or because they think it only happens to others. But the reality is different. Many men don't go to the urologist for years. And do you know what I often hear? But I was actually feeling fine. That's exactly the problem, because prostate cancer can develop while you feel completely healthy. Why men must not ignore preventive checkups. Let me ask you a direct question. When was the last time you had your prostate examined? If you are over 45 or 50 years old, this is no small matter anymore. Especially not if there have already been cases of prostate cancer in your family. Many men avoid checkups. Why? Because they are afraid, because the thought makes them uncomfortable, or because they hope that everything will be fine anyway. But let me tell you something very important. A brief moment of discomfort can give you years of good health. And here, we're mainly talking about 2 important examinations. First, the PSA blood test. This involves measuring a specific value in the blood, the so-called prostate-specific antigen, or PSA for short. An elevated PSA level does not automatically mean cancer, but it can be an important warning sign. And that's exactly why this test is so valuable. It can help detect changes at an early stage. Second, the physical examination by the urologist. Yes, many men immediately think of the digital rectal examination and react with uncertainty. But please listen to me carefully. A few minutes of courage could possibly save your life. Because if changes are detected early, the chances of a cure are often very high. And that's exactly why fear should never be more important than health. Because one thing is clear: the earlier something is detected, the better the treatment options. And now, of course, the next question arises: which symptoms are particularly common with prostate cancer? Here I have to repeat something very important. In its early stages, prostate cancer often causes no symptoms, and that's exactly why many men mistakenly rely on symptoms. But as the disease progresses, certain warning signs can appear. Pay special attention to the following changes. Difficulty urinating. Yes, similar to an enlarged prostate. That's why self-diagnosis is dangerous, because symptoms can overlap. Only a medical examination can provide clarity. A noticeably weaker urine stream. If the urine stream suddenly becomes weak or changes significantly, this should be taken seriously, especially if other symptoms appear as well. Blood in the urine or semen. And here I want to be very clear, you should never ignore blood, whether in urine or semen. This does not automatically mean cancer, but it is always a sign that should be medically examined. Pain in the bones or back, and many men do not associate back pain with the prostate. However, in advanced cases, pain can occur, especially in the back, hips, or bones. Unintentional weight loss. If someone suddenly loses weight without dieting or making conscious changes, that deserves attention, because unintentional weight loss can be a general warning sign from the body. Erection problems. This too is often kept quiet. But difficulties with erections can also in some cases be related to prostate problems. And please understand me correctly, none of these symptoms automatically means cancer. But they do mean you should take action, because ignoring something has never cured a disease. And that's exactly why I want to talk now about something that is often more important than any treatment. How can you lower your risk before any serious problems even arise? Because prevention doesn't just start at the doctor's office. It starts with the decisions you make every day. And this is exactly where we come to a point that many men underestimate. Because when it comes to the prostate, many only start thinking about it once problems have already appeared, when urination becomes difficult, when sleep suffers, when sudden anxiety arises. But the truth is, the best decisions are made before serious symptoms develop. Because prevention does not mean perfection. It's not about radically changing everything in your life, but about making small decisions every day that can protect your health in the long term. And that's why I want to show you now what you can specifically do to reduce the risk of an enlarged prostate and possibly even prostate cancer. First, nutrition. What you eat affects your prostate more than many people think. Let's start with something that plays a role every single day: your diet. Many men think of medication or surgery first when it comes to prostate problems, but few ask themselves, can my lifestyle influence my risk? The answer is yes, significantly. A diet rich in fresh vegetables, fruits, and natural foods appears to be associated with better prostate health. Foods that contain lycopene are particularly interesting. You may have heard of it before. Lycopene is a powerful antioxidant. It is found, among other things, in tomatoes, watermelons, guavas, and pink grapefruit. And why is that interesting? Because antioxidants can help protect cells from oxidative stress, a process that is associated with aging and inflammation. Cooked tomato products, such as tomato sauce in particular, often contain especially bioavailable lycopene. On the other hand, we often see a problem: a diet full of highly processed foods, fast food, excessive saturated fats, sugary products, and heavily processed ready-made meals. Of course, that doesn't mean you can never enjoy these things again, but ask yourself a simple question: how often do you actually give your body food that supports it instead of burdening it? Sometimes change begins with small steps: more vegetables, more fiber, fewer highly processed foods, and often it's not just the prostate that benefits, but the whole body. Second, exercise. Your prostate doesn't like a lack of movement. Now, something many men don't like to hear: exercise is medicine. And no, you don't have to become a gym fanatic. It's not about achieving peak performance every day, but regular exercise can make an amazing difference. Walking, strolling, swimming, cycling, light strength training. All of these can help. Why? Because physical activity improves circulation, can positively influence inflammatory processes, supports metabolism, and often helps with weight as well. And being overweight plays a bigger role than many people think, especially belly fat, because a higher body weight is often associated with an increased risk of various health problems, including issues related to the prostate. So my question is, when was the last time you moved consciously? Not perfectly, not extremely. Just regularly. Sometimes just 30 minutes of walking a day is enough to make a difference. And yes, your body notices it. Third, control your weight. Belly fat is not just a cosmetic problem. Let's speak openly. Many men notice as they get older that their belly gets bigger, their energy decreases, and their mobility worsens. And many then say, that's just age. But it's not that simple. Excess belly fat is not just a matter of appearance. It affects hormones, inflammation, metabolism, and can have long-term effects on various organs. That's why a healthy weight is more than just a number on the scale. It's about staying healthy longer, having more energy, and reducing the likelihood of problems later on. Fourth, alcohol and smoking. Two underestimated burdens. Now an honest moment. Many men already know that smoking is harmful to your health, but still, people often underestimate how much smoking can affect inflammation processes and cancer risks. And alcohol also plays a role, especially in larger amounts. Because alcohol can irritate the bladder, and some men notice increased urge to urinate or more discomfort as a result. This isn't about extremes, but about awareness. Your body remembers habits for years, sometimes decades, and every better decision counts. Fifth, take your family history seriously. Now comes a point that you can't control, but should be aware of: your genetics. Were there cases of prostate cancer in your family, your father, brother, or grandfather? If so, your risk may be higher. And that's exactly why preventive care is especially important in these cases. Many experts recommend that men with a family history start screening earlier, sometimes as early as around 45 years old, and in certain cases even earlier. That's why the rule is knowledge protects. Not fear, not denial. Knowledge. One last important message. If you take only one thing from this video today, let it be this. Do not ignore changes in your body. Your body is talking to you. Sometimes loudly, sometimes quietly. And especially prostate problems often begin with symptoms that seem harmless. Frequent urge to urinate, nighttime urination, a weaker urine stream, dribbling after urination, difficulty starting, interrupted urine flow, loss of urine. Maybe one of these symptoms seems minor, but taken together, they often tell a story. A story that your body needs attention. And let me say this to you directly. It is not a weakness to go to the doctor. It is taking responsibility for yourself, for your own future, for the people you love. Because when problems are detected early, the options are often much better. And that's exactly why. Don't wait until symptoms get worse. Don't wait for pain. Don't wait for fear. Act early. If you have noticed changes, talk to a urologist. Have your values checked. Ask questions. Because prevention is always easier than treatment. And now I'm interested in your opinion. How often do you get up at night to go to the bathroom? Write it down in the comments below, because many men only realize wait a minute, I'm not alone in this. And if you think this video could help a father, brother, husband, or friend, share it. Because sometimes a single piece of information at just the right moment can change a life. See you in the next video.